I'm thrilled and honored to moderate this session. Again, Adele, all
Yes.
three speakers originated from the Southern Hemisphere, so and the moderator as well. So, and all of them longtime friends of the ITA and lecturers. So, as I usually say, reincidents uh, of the ITA. Adele will speak once again about her spécialité de la maison, Egyptian culture, and every time from a different aspect. I loved the pun of the title of your, yeah, the Raining Cats and Dogs about royal pets. Uh, Again, since we are so short in time, this time, I'll skip reading your bio. You can find it on our site. And Adele, the floor is yours. I'll tell you when you have a few minutes left.
You'll be pleased to know I'm not showing any naked pictures this time, unlike last time. Okay,
But
so
Adele, I love the name of your talk.
oh, thank you. Yes, the royal pets, because as you know, cats in any case are in charge of the house, but if you're the pharaoh, then they really are in charge of the house. So anyway, so we are talking today about animal mummification, and how it came about, and the kind of consequences it had in the society, and also how it changed the philosophy. All right, so let me see if I can get to my next one. Where is it? Here? No, here. Okay, here. Aha. Is this? So do you see about a lot of cat mummies?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So to start off, I mean sorry?
Click the admit button. Sorry.
They admit. Okay, sorry. Sorry, we're still admitting people. We're still admitting people. All right.
Yeah,
Okay,
don't worry.
so basically the format is I'm going to talk a little bit about um according to ancient Egyptian mythology, how the world came into being, the world in general, more specifically Egypt, um, then how mummification started, because there is a myth related to that, and then how they do mummification, and then there are four different types of animal mummification, and the consequences for that in the society. So I'm still admitting people. Is everyone here now? You're all here? Okay.
Don't worry,
Right.
I'll do the admission.
Okay. All right. So this is just an example of different types of cat mummies. Um, and for our next slide, we have oops, where is he? Come along. Oh, wait. Okay. I've actually got to do it with a space bar. Okay, so this is Atum uh, creating the world. I don't know if you've attended any of the previous lectures. I did do the creation myths a few years ago, but essentially, in the ancient Egyptian mythology, they have a creator god called Atum, or in some translations, Amun. And he's a very interesting person because he's just kind of a self-engendered god. He just like created himself and stepped out of the Nile. And how he created the world, and I'm sorry, but this is the myth. Um, he masturbated the world into existence and he flung all of his sperm all over the universe. And he created all the stars and the planets. And if you look carefully, you can see he actually even created the people because there's little bits of stuff dripping on their head. And he kind of brought the whole world into being by, inseminating the cosmos. Okay. So if you ask like a step back, like, who created the Nile? They would say something like the Nile was just there and it was just kind of concepts sort of that grew out of chaos. But okay, so he is the creator God. Um, okay, so this is the first sunrise. Um, And interestingly enough, we're seeing the planet here, and the planet is round, not, flat in a disc on the back of a tortoise. And there are two goddesses here that are adding some water to the oceans. And this is the first sunrise, which is actually also the hieroglyph for the horizon. So when you want to write the word horizon, this is what you'd write, which is the sun coming up over the valley
Frozen.
between two mountains. So that was what they call the first day, and it's called Tep-Zepi, I think, or Zep-Tepi. Okay, so after he created the earth, Amun then had two children, which are Shu and Tefnet, which are dry air and wet air. And there they are. They're siblings, but of course they're also married, so they are brother and sister, but they also marry each other. So this is how it is in ancient Egypt, well, in the mythology anyway. And then Shu and Tefnet, which basically I think is actually wind and rain, but dry air and wet air. They had two children, and their two children was the sky, which is Nut. She's the heavenly canopy over here. And very unusually, ancient Egyptians had a male earth god, which is really, I think, almost the only one I've ever encountered in my life. Usually all earth gods are female, but their earth god is male. You can see he's covered in sand and he's got some green leaves here. And she's the sky, she's covered in stars. And what we're having here is we're having the sunrise. This is Ra over here in the middle on his solar bark, and he's coming up. And there at the end of the day, we have sunset, and there is Ra going down to sleep. So the word for sky is Pet, which is written here, PT. And as in normal ancient Egyptian words, at the end of the word, they actually draw a picture of what the word is. Okay, so you'll get it spelled out in the hieroglyphs, and then you'll actually get a glyph, which is called a determinative or a designator sometimes, and it will actually show you that this word pet means sky or heaven. And if you look at it, you can actually see that it's the shape of her. So that is the hieroglyph for heaven. Okay. So now I'm going to tell you how the first mummy came about, because it's relevant to our story. So Nut and Geb had 4 children: Osiris, Isis, Seth, and Nephthys. And Osiris was the kind of ruler of the whole world, and his brother Seth was very, very jealous of him and conspired to kill him so that he could take his place. And in fact, in the original myth, he actually manages to kill him twice, because Isis is his wife, also his sister, and she brings him back to life. And then Seth feels that he didn't kill him well enough the first time. So the second time he kills him by dismembering him and taking all the different bits of body parts and flinging it all over the world. So the 2 sisters of Osiris, which are here, these 2, Isis and Nephthys, go around and they collect all the different pieces of the body, and they wrap them tightly together to kind of reconstitute him. And Isis, being the goddess of magic, is able to reanimate him and bring him back to life. So I guess she was the Mary Shelley of her time. And he becomes the first mummy. And as a result of being the first mummy, and also he's dead. So this is another important thing. He's dead, but they have a lot of different levels of dead. Okay. So he's dead, but he's still kind of alive, and he gets to now be king of the underworld. And the reason that we know that he's dead is that his skin is always green. So that's an indication of the fact that he's not alive in the traditional sense of being alive as we would know it, but he's still alive in the underworld. So he gets to be god of the underworld, which is fine because he's dead. And after a while, what happened was is that obviously people began to realize if they wanted to go into the next life and they wanted to enter the underworld, they too had to be mummified like the god Osiris. So the practice of mummification started. And then what happened was is sort of as the society developed and they wanted to take their pets with them, and also it was important for them not to be lonely in the next life, they started to mummify their pets. And this also kind of changed the status of animals a lot, because it now meant that animals also had the right to an eternal life in paradise. And more importantly, that animals in one point became a very devastating consequence for their society. But anyway, so let's continue. Right, next. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so this is just the status of animals. As you can see, they're very, very highly respected and very influential. And it's estimated that about every fifth hieroglyph is an animal or something related to an animal. So these are all lots of different hieroglyphs. I've just listed a few of them here, but there are actually quite hundreds. I went to the Library of Alexandria online. It's called Bibliotheca Alexandria, and they have a hieroglyph library there, and you can actually get these from the library in Alexandria. So, so our next sort of interesting paradox is that we have animals that have this dual status. They're kind of roped in to be domesticated, and they're of service, but in actual fact, they are also worshipped as gods. So the point is you have to treat them very well. And this is also an indication of like the very high status that animals had in ancient Egyptian society, which is actually not commonly known. Anyway, next we have the afterlife. I have spoken on this before, but essentially what happens is after you've died, you then have to go through a sort of process of judgment to see whether or not your soul qualifies to get into the afterlife. And at the top over here, you can see we have assessors and judges. And these people are like, they accuse you of various things and you have to defend yourself. They ask you lots of questions and then they judge you and they decide whether or not you will actually be going on to the next life. And the process is that your heart is over here on this little scale. And on that side of the scale is an ostrich feather. In this particular case, it's held by the goddess Mart, but Mart is the sort of goddess of justice and order and things like that. So if your heart is very heavy and filled with sin, it will sink, and then you don't get to go to the afterlife. And if it's not heavy and it's light and it's in balance with ostrich feather, then you will in fact go. So there's the goddess Mart standing up there. She has an ostrich feather on her head. This is the deceased person. She's being held here by Horus. He's wearing his double crown, so he's the king of Upper and Lower Egypt. And this is Anubis, the god of mummification. This is Tot. He's making notes. He's the, I don't know, transcribing things. And this poor little goddess here, her name is Amit. She's not your friend, actually, because she's the devourer of hearts. So if you fail, she gets to eat your heart. She's a composite being. She's made out of a crocodile and a lion and a hippopotamus. But actually, most people pass the test, and poor Amit is eternally hungry. But the reason that I added this is that one of the questions that the accusers and the judges ask, one of the crucial questions that they ask you in order for you to pass to your next life was, how well did you treat animals? Were you cruel to animals? And if it was found that you treated animals badly or you were sadistic in any way, then you didn't get to pass into the next life. And animals had such a high status that if an animal died and you were accused of killing it, it was actually the same as murder. You could be put to death. It was a very serious crime punishable by death. So this is how animals were regarded in ancient Egyptian society. Okay, so here we have some more examples of animal mummies. These are just drawings, so we have lots of different styles of cat mummies, and they're decorated, they're painted with resin after they're mummified, and they're decorated so that you know what's inside the mummy, because the dog mummies look quite similar, the bird mummies could also look quite similar, so the head is painted. And here are examples of different mummies. This is a ram, I think this is a bull, a crocodile, a dog. This is an ape, this is some kind of bird, and this one I'm not quite sure what he is. But as you can see, some of them are on kind of frames, almost like a little bit of, I don't know, like a wooden casing. And then the rest of the skeleton is inside and just the head is on top. Okay, so the mummification process, I'll let you read that if you want to. First of all, the animal is purified. It's ritually cleansed. It's normally washed in water from the Nile River. Sometimes they even wash it in perfume and oils and stuff. The organs are removed. It's exactly the same process for people, actually. Then the body is dried out. This is called desiccation. And they had a salt, which apparently is very much kind of like baking soda. It's called natron. And they used to dry out the body. And once it was dry, then they wrapped it in linen. And exactly like for the process of mummification of humans, they put in prayers, they put in amulets, they put in little scrolls, and all sorts of protective objects so that the animal's soul would be protected on the journey through to the next life. And then finally, this is the bit that's a little bit different. They put resin on the bandages to kind of keep the shape of the animal, and then they painted the face on. So that's slightly different. But basically the process is almost the same. And this is just a priest busy doing a human mummification, and he's dressed as Anubis. Anubis is the god of mummification, and he's also a son of Osiris, who's the guy that's, you know, the one with the green skin that lives in the underworld. Okay, so we have 4 different types of animal mummies, and I will list them here. Okay, so first of all, we have pet mummies, and these are people that wanted to keep their pets into the next life, particularly the royal princes and princesses, which is why it's called raining cats and dogs, because they actually, I mean, often the pets would predecease them, so the pet had its own tomb, and when the royal person died, that little animal tomb was actually moved into the larger tomb of the pharaoh so they could be together in the afterlife. Okay. Then the next one is votive offerings. So these are like those little cat mummies that I showed you. They're created by the priests, and they're sold to people who are visiting the temple who want to make an offering to the gods. However, some of them actually were just empty. They were just wrappings, and the priests were just, I don't know, stealing people's money. Anyway, then we have the sacred animals, which are the animals that are also worshipped. Okay, so we have the bull, who's the Apis bull. We have the cat for the goddess Bastet, and later on I'll show you the crocodile god Sobek, which is horrible. But I'm coming to that. And then we have victual mummies, and victual mummies are essentially just animals that have been dried for food in the next life. So when the pharaoh gets put into his tomb, another kind of mummy that accompanies him is the mummies that he's going to consume in the afterlife. So those were the 4 different types of animal mummies that were routinely made in ancient Egypt. Okay, so this is an example. Whoops, come on. Okay, so this is a sacred mummy. As you can see, this is the Apis bull. It has the kind of little sort of wooden frame here that is hosting the rest of the body, and then the head is decorated so that you know it's a bull. This is what Apis looks like in hieroglyphs. His name is written here, and then as usual, if you didn't know that that actually said Apis, it actually has a drawing of Apis so that you know. So that's the determinative. Okay, so I'm going to move on to pet mummies now. So we have a lot of different types of pets. We have cats, dogs, monkeys, gazelles, birds. And actually, when a pet died, they treated it it had a funeral, and you were shown your mourning. You shaved off your eyebrows, you put sand and ash in your hair, and you ripped your clothes, and you did all the things that you would do for human funerals. And of course, as the status of animals grew,
Frozen again.
they had to be mummified because they had to mortality in paradise. Okay. So I just want to show you a few little interesting words. Okay, so these were from translations of pet tombs. Okay, so this is the word for cat, which actually reads as mew. And then at the back of the word mew, we have this little animal pelt. So that this is an indication that this mew thing is in fact an animal. And then the word for dog is uv uv. And so if you have uv uv here, then you actually have a picture of a dog showing you that uv uv is a dog. So they continue with the practice of determinatives. Right. Okay. So this is a gazelle, which is a rather large mummy, and that's just a tiny little carving, I think, of an ibex. But I kind of just wanted to show you what it looks like. And then we have, I'm going to tell you about 3 famous pets. So the most famous pet is a monkey. He's the kind of celebrity pet in ancient Egypt because he was owned by a princess that was also a high priestess. Okay, so when her tomb was found, she had at the bottom of her mummy, in her feet, a little tiny wrapping mummy. And originally, everybody was very confused because they thought it was her child. And they were worried about this because as a priestess, she had to take a vow of celibacy. But finally, they x-rayed it and they found out it was actually a monkey. So she had I guess, a replacement child. And her sister, interestingly enough, was mummified with her gazelle, which you saw in the previous picture. And then the next one is my favorite, I think. This was the pet of Prince Thutmose of the 18th dynasty. Her name is Tamut, which is translated literally as she-cat. I kind of think it really, he's saying Miss Kitty. But if you look over here, this is the word for cat, mew. And you can actually see it's written here. And there's the little pelt. And in this case, the word cat is written again with a picture of a cat. So this is his cat. She's very snazzy. I must say she's quite fashionable. She's got a scarf on. And she has a roast goose. So the cat obviously predeceased him. And when he died, her little tomb was added to his tomb. So this is just an explanation of what I said, is that she has a roast goose and she has a little scarf, and Tamut means literally she-cat, but I kind of think it really means Miss Kitty. Anyway, next one. Okay, so now we're on to votive offerings. And this is a dog mummy. So as you can see, we have to just change the face a bit because it looks almost identical to a cat mummy. And in this particular case, there actually is a dog mummified in this wrapping. But as I said to you before, many of the priests, sadly, actually committed mummy fraud. When people came to the temples, I mean, look, they could actually bring food, incense, drink, whatever, but most of them liked to bring, if they were going to worship at the temple of Bastet, they'd like to bring a mummified cat. And these priests used to create these mummies and sell them, and a lot of them didn't have mummies inside of them. So, mummy fraud. It's kind of weird to think about it, but yes, okay. Now comes, I think, my least favorite god, at least one of the least favorite gods. Ugh. Okay. So this is a god mummy of a sacred animal. This is Sobek, and this is the S, the B, and the K. And if you didn't know that Sobek was the crocodile god, we actually have a picture of Sobek on his little altar over here. So that's his determinative. So that's his name written out with his determinative. And here, of course, we have Sobek in his anthropomorphic form, where he's got a human body and he has a crocodile head. This is a kind of personal one for me because I actually went to the Crocodile Museum. So Sobek is meant to be a protector. He's meant to be the pharaoh's protector, and he is the symbol of military strength, and also, interestingly enough, he's associated with fertility. So we have the mummified crocodiles here, and then we have them still wrapped over there. And I walked around this museum and I thought, which fool actually had to catch these? Like, I mean, it's a different thing to catch a cat or a bird or something. Try and catch a crocodile. I mean, really, I don't know. I don't know how they did this. And they've got like rooms full of these mummified crocodiles. Anyway.
But Adele, don't you think they died naturally?
Well, some of them, I guess, but not all of them.
Because weren't they afraid of the questioning of whether they had harmed an animal? Or does that just refer to pets?
No, that refers to when people are on trial. But maybe you're right. Maybe they died naturally. But the amount of crocodiles they actually have there, I don't know. Anyway, so I want to tell you something like really gross. This is a map of the temple at Komombo, which is a city sort of nearish Aswan. If you kind of go down the Nile, because I mean there's a train that goes from Cairo all the way to Aswan, and sort of a few stops before Aswan you have this town called Komombo, and Komombo is famous for having a double temple. So this half of the temple is a Horus temple, and this half of the temple is a Sobek temple. And it has all the enormous things. It has all the inscriptions to Horus and statues of Horus, and this side it has inscriptions to Sobek and statues of Sobek. And then I did a kind of unusual thing, which was I took a walk around the outside of the temple. And on the outside wall, I found something very unusual. Apparently, people used to come and sacrifice their arms. So we have what I called the avenue of the amputees. We have all these people who, in the process of worshipping Sobek, had an arm amputated, and their names are all down here. And they used to make sacrifices of body parts to the crocodile god. And to be honest, this is the only time I've ever seen this. I did a lot of research and I searched for this a lot, and I never ever found that anybody wrote about it, anybody knows about it. And maybe it's because it's actually on the outside wall of the temple, like next to the river. So I guess most people don't see it. But these poor people used to come and get their arm amputated and thrown off into the river to feed the crocodiles. And that was their sacrifice. So a personal experience of mine. Okay. Right. Okay. So finally, we have victual mummies, and victual mummies are the mummies that are preserved for food. So these are actually from the tomb of Tutankhamun. They're duct-shaped containers, and they contain dehydrated ducks. So these were for the pharaoh to eat in his next life, because when you go into your next life, your soul has to be maintained also. And it kind of went through a similar process in as much as it got cleaned, and it got dehydrated and it got wrapped, but it didn't get all the blessings and all the amulets and stuff, and it also didn't get the resin and the painting. So it was like a separate kind of mummification because this was going to be a meal. All right, so now I'm going to tell you the very tragic story of the the consequences of having animals with, I guess, souls of the same value as human beings. So this is the Battle of Pelusium, which took place in 525. And it was the Persian invasion of Egypt. It was led by a general called Cambyses II, and he was the son of Cyrus the Great. So what he did was he went and he kidnapped a whole bunch of cats and gazelles and dogs and all sorts of things, birds, whatever, and he drove them in front of his armies, and he painted pictures of Bastet on his soldiers' shields, and the Egyptians were so horrified that they actually withdrew. They ran away and they yielded. They submitted. So what I've got here is what Egyptians valued all life in all of its forms. So not only humans, but beyond humans to animals. Mostly they were vegetarian, sometimes pescatarian. Occasionally they ate meat, but not often. And, the meat went through a process of blessings. Okay. So this kind of value of animal life was epitomized in this battle between this pharaoh, Psammek III, and the Persian king Cambyses II. And, a lot of historians feel that, look, Cambyses would have won this anyway. The pharaoh was young. He was very new. He'd only been pharaoh for 6 months. And I guess he was not a seasoned veteran soldier as Cambyses was. But, Cambyses kind of used psychological warfare. He used the animals and he kind of got the Egyptians to stand down, particularly because he used cats. And, they loved their goddess Bastet very much. So this is another painting of the battle. And as you can see, they actually used to take the cats and just fling them into the air. And then their soldiers would shoot them with arrows. And the Egyptians were absolutely horrified. Like they'd never seen such barbarity in all their lives. So they surrendered. They surrendered, which is what Cambyses knew that they would do. They would rather surrender their country than betray their beliefs. And apparently, after he'd won this battle, he kind of got all the Egyptian royal family and paraded them through the city and threw cats at them and laughed. Although, there are other versions where people say that's an exaggeration, but I kind of think, that he probably did do that. Anyway, it is a horrible story. It's a true story. And the pharaoh, of course, committed suicide. He was taken captive. His son was executed and his daughter was enslaved. So from the from the Persian point of view, we have this victory painting of Cambyses taking the pharaoh hostage. And if you look carefully, that is actually the sort of Persian version of the double crown. So this is the red crown and this is the white crown. And here he has a spear to the neck of the pharaoh. Pharaoh's looking up at him.
Okay.
And
4 minutes, Adele.
Okay, I'm actually almost done. So this, was the first time that Egypt fell to the Persians through their, I guess, cruelty or their cleverness of psychological warfare. So, and now on to more hopeful things. So the paradise, the afterlife for ancient Egyptians is called the Field of Reeds. And essentially, it's a kind of pastoral existence with lots of plants and lots of animals, and everybody's happy, and everybody has enough to eat, and nobody's sick. And ultimately, I'm going to hopefully end on a positive note after that sad story. But, you know, basically what we have now is the paradox that I think all modern people have, well, all people have, is that we have the problem of our values versus our goals. Either we can have our values or we can have our goals, but often we cannot have both. You know, so if we don't believe in war and we don't want to kill anybody, we sometimes actually find that in order to defend our belief systems and ourselves, we have to go to war. So this is the paradox of where we are. So I'm ending here, and I'm just going to say, hopefully for the next life, our souls, like the ancient Egyptians, will continue to pass into the afterlife and live in the field of reeds, which is the kind of paradise mirror of all the earthly life. And part of this, to enter into paradise, is to know that you have in fact treated animals kindly. So be a good person and don't hurt the animals. And that's it. Okay. So I hope you learned something.
Thank you.
I don't
Indeed. By the way, Sophia is asking, where is the Crocodiles Museum?
Oh, it's at the Temple of Komombo. Komombo is a city, sort
Between
of.
Luxor and
Yeah, between
Aswan.
Luxor and Aswan. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. Okay. So that's it.
Adela,
I took a train.
You never cease to amaze us with the breadth of knowledge you have about ancient Egypt.
And actually, you know, I'm a kind of armchair Egyptologist. I just do it as a hobby, really. But I've been doing it for a long time, and I visited Egypt a lot. I mean, I think I've been like 12 times, maybe 15 times. I don't know. And I've
So
been
I'll
into
tell
all
you
these.
what I heard about Egyptology. Because there isn't much you can do with studying Egyptology apart from teaching Egyptology. It's literally a pyramid scheme.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
Okay,
So
can I just say something,
Yeah.
Adele?
Yes, Sophia, please.
Fascinating talk. If I knew there was an Egyptian, a person passionate about Egyptian, I would have joined your organization a long time ago.
thank you.
You're still on time.
Yes. I invite everybody to Bologna because Naomi and I were speaking before and said, yes, it says that it has the oldest university in Europe, the oldest law faculty. Well, it has the number 3 collection for Egyptian artifacts, and it actually has, I'm trying to remember now, 3 or 4 crocodiles and a lot of cats. So I'll look through my photos and see if I can find some, send them through. But if you decide to come here, I'll see if I can organize one of the Egyptologists to take us through the museum.
If you ever go to Turin has an enormous Egyptian.
Yes. I know the director of the Turin. So like you, I'm not an Egyptologist, but that's why I studied law, so I can hang around with in ancient ruins. That's all I want to say. Don't want to take any more time, but thank you.
No, that's okay. I'm done anyway. But you should have seen last year's lecture because I did the Turin Papyrus, which is the erotic one. But that's online. You can watch it. It's on
Very
YouTube.
spicy.
That was an exciting lecture.
Okay, well, online I will go. Thank you.
All right.
Perfect.
Okay, guys. So that's it. Are we done?
Thank you, Adele, as usual. Perfect.